Okay, wait a minute, hold on.
Whoa, start over.
What happened?
Okay, now you go.
Okay, I read 1 Samuel, and it's a really cool book, and I think you guys should all read it because it's really, really interesting. The first 2 chapters are slow, but then it gets there's a lot of battles, and it's all chasing David and stuff, and it's really, it's intense. You guys all like it. Alright, so it starts out with this guy. His name is, I forget his name, but he had 2 wives, and one was Hannah. Hannah couldn't have any children, so she was a really Christian lady and everything, and she would, not Christian dude, but, godly person, and she would, go to the temple and pray to God a lot and everything, and, she would go and pray to God that she could have kids because she really wanted to, have some sons because the second wife that he had was always bragging to her about how she couldn't have kids and he could. And so one day, she was given a son by God, and she named him Samuel. And so what she did was she dedicated him to Eli, who was he was the priest at the time, and he was going to be raised with Eli and learn God's ways and everything. And because that she did this, God gave her 7 more kids. So yeah, it was pretty cool. And then as Samuel grows up and everything, Eli is the priest at the time, and his sons aren't the best people, and God tells him to make them stop what they're doing because they're going around and they're just doing a lot of bad things. But God warns Eli. Eli really doesn't do much about it, and so he says that Eli's going to die, and both of his sons are going to die on the same day. And then God, while Samuel is sleeping, God is calling God's calling Samuel, but every time Samuel's going over to Eli, to where he's sitting saying, you kept calling me, what would you like to talk about? Everything is I didn't call you back to bed and everything. After the 3rd time of doing that, then Eli's God's calling you, go back, listen to him and everything. And then, so after that, Eli is he rebukes his sons, and he rebukes his sons and everything, but they don't really listen. So then the Philistines capture the ark, and they take it into their land and everything, and Israel is freaking out and all because the ark is where God dwells with them. So the Philistines soon learn that it's really bad to have the ark because it keeps cursing them and bringing plagues to them, and they get tumors and stuff. And so they're okay, well, we need to return the ark to Israel because we don't want this anymore. And so they return it with these other treasures with one of them was 5 gold rats or something to represent the plagues that was on them. So they give them 5 gold rats, whatever it is. And then during the battle, Eli, I'm pretty sure it was during the battle, both of his sons died because they fought the Philistines because they took the ark and they lost. So, and both of his sons died. And then Eli fell off a rock and he bumped his head and died. So he died the same day that they did. And then Samuel becomes the judge of Israel, and he is a really, really wise guy. And then Israel starts demanding a king. They really want a king. And then Eli's well, God doesn't want you to have a king or whatever and stuff, but God talks to Samuel and says, well, give them a king. They're going to assume that it's not the best idea to have a king, but if they want a king, let them have one because they rejected me or whatever and stuff. And so there's Saul went with his servant to find these lost sheep that his father had escaped from his father's place. They were going out there looking for them. They couldn't find them at all. And the servant said, why don't we go into this town where Samuel is, and we can talk to him about it because he's a very wise person. He might tell us where they are. And so they go there, and Samuel says that the sheep had already been found. And so he sends the servant away, but tells Saul to stay with him a little bit longer. And he tells Saul that he was chosen as king, and tells him that he's going to go into the city, he's going to prophesy with these people, and then Samuel's going to call all of Israel together, and he's going to anoint Saul as king. So Saul goes out, and he goes and he somehow is able to prophesy because God gives him that power. And then Samuel calls Israel together, and like, this will be, and then he takes all the tribes and starts singling everybody out, and then he gets Saul as king, but Saul doesn't want to come out because he doesn't want to be king. He's hiding like in all this like luggage and stuff. Not luggage, but like he's just hiding like a storage place where all these like fruits and stuff are stored. But then they pull him out, like, and then they anoint his head with oil, and he became the new king. And so Saul's proclaimed king, and then they go to, and then Saul, in his like first like years as king, he like fights against the Amorites. And this is where like all these wars start coming in, and since he's all pumped up because he's like king and stuff, and he totally like destroys the Amorites. And then Saul fights the Philistines, but he does all these bad sacrifices and vows and stuff that God doesn't like. So then his son Samuel, Jonathan, his son is Jonathan, and he comes and helps him defeat the Philistines. And then after they defeat the Philistines, Saul keeps on doing these vows and things that God doesn't agree with. And so God kind of rejects Saul as the king, and then Samuel goes and finds David, and David is anointed as is going to be the next king. And then after that, the story that we probably all know, David and Goliath. David defeats Goliath and everything, and Goliath is like huge, like the Philistine army challenges the Israelites' army, and then David comes and kills the biggest, like one of the Goliath's like a giant. He kills him with like a rock and a slingshot kind of thing. And so after that, Saul is all like, well, David's like stealing all my, he's all more popular than I am now. And so he gets really jealous of David. And then it talks about how Jonathan and David become really good friends and everything. And then Saul tells Jonathan that he's going to try to kill David. But then since Jonathan's really good friends with David, he warns him, and David flees so he doesn't get killed. And then, while he's fleeing, he has his 600 men as well, 600 men and his wives, I'm pretty sure. And so, he's going away with his men and his wives. He got married. He has 2 wives right now, I think. Yeah, he has 2 wives. And they don't have any food, so they come to the city of, they came to Nob. It's called Nob. It's a really weird city, but Nob. And then the priests are there at the, and then they're like, we need something to eat. We need something to eat. We're really hungry. We're starving and everything. And so, the priests say we don't have anything, but they had the holy bread that only the priests were supposed to eat, and David ate that, and God said it was okay because they were starving and they were in need. And then David keeps off running because Saul's coming and trying to kill him, and then he flees to this place called Gath, and then he hides in a cave so Saul can't find him. And then Saul comes around into the forest where they're hiding at inside the cave, and he's coming, and then Saul, and then David's Shaw, and cuts off part of his clothes, and he has Saul his sword tip, and he's and then Saul's I promise I won't try to kill you anymore. I'm really sorry. I won't do anything else bad. And then so David spares Saul's life. And I'm sorry, I'm going on a really long time, but that's the stuff. And so yeah, he spares Saul's life there, and then after that, Samuel dies, because he's really, really old, and he was a really awesome, wise priest, and he died. That's kind of sad. But then Saul tries to come and kill David again, and David has Saul again at his sword, because he's I'll spare your life again, but you need to stop trying to kill me and stuff. And then after that, it's pretty much David, Saul's still trying to kill David and stuff. And then he's fleeing towards Philistines, and the Philistines just send him away. They don't want to fight them. Yeah, but kind of confusing, but the Philistines just kind of rejected David and his army and his men. And then they come to the Amalekites, I think. Amalekites, is that how you say it? Okay. Yeah, and they capture some of his army, and they capture his wives, and then David goes and chases after them and gets all his people back. And then it kind of ends with Saul committing suicide. So, yeah, it's a really action-packed book, and you guys should all read it.